I was thinking a little bit about how I filmed a video a couple weeks ago, and it was about finding meaning outside of yourself. And it kind of ended up being a conversation about finding meaning among community and among people. And it had me thinking about how we feel about strangers and how we've grown to feel about strangers. And I'm from like the time before phones, not that much time before phones, but I had a childhood without cell phones. And it was very trusting. The world was very trusting. Obviously, bad shit happened, but bad shit still happens. And the point is, despite that, I was still kind of raised, I think, more than most to be afraid. And I blame that on my parents because they let me watch Criminal Minds a lot as a kid, and I was like convinced I was going to get kidnapped. It was a recurring nightmare of mine. And obviously bad shit happened. It really does. But fear pervades our communities and it makes us afraid of people we don't know. But anyways, we're always, still taught, despite being a little bit more trusting, I think, than we are now, to beware of strangers. Strangers are bad. People you don't know are bad. A valid concern. I think it's divided us from our neighbors and we're alienated in our communities. It's true. We don't trust people. We don't trust people, and that's our base, is that we don't trust people. Again, it's for good reason, but also it has this kind of perverse outcome, which is this loneliness and this fear and this kind of suspicion of other people and towards things we don't know and people we don't know, and fear towards what we don't understand. And fear is an inhibitor to learning. There's natural curiosity when you meet new people. There's natural curiosity when you encounter new stories, new perspectives and possibilities, and things are, we're always going to be interested to some degree with these new things. But if fear overtakes that, then we lose that kind of awesome avenue for exploration. We're exploring a stranger, right? We're talking about what makes a stranger a stranger. A stranger is someone you don't know. It's someone that you could know, but it's someone that operates, maybe you've passed them, you've interacted with them to some degree, but you don't know them. And realistically, they're strangers. They're people you're not familiar with. In an intimate way, that can be just like your relationships and getting to know people as they are and who they are and in your life and in the context of that relationship, but also on a grand scheme where we talk about in-groups and out-groups and this hegemonic kind of understanding of who's in, who's out, who is like us and not like us, and cautious behaviors and fearful behaviors that are associated with people that aren't familiar to us. And it's dangerous. And it's not to discredit any of those reasons why we might be wary of people. This is to talk about the general understanding of how we interact with the world and how we interact with people, and trusting our communities and trusting the people around us as a general base, rather than the blanket understanding that we should be afraid of one another and that we are to be afraid. Because I am so confident in the safety of people, and most people aren't fucking freaks. And it does the world a disservice when they amplify through whatever narrative they're spreading that people are dangerous, and that a lot of people believe that they're dangerous. There is like this group, this out-group, this abstract concept that's applied to different groups to foster hate, to foster division, and to better incorporate alienation in our communities. It destabilizes communities. It gives the hegemonic class more power when the average person is afraid of the other average person. Yeah, it can limit growth. It can limit mobilization. If we're talking from like a sociological or like social movements perspective, when we talk more on the individual level, and we're still like, sociological because we're fucked in the head and we only think in that way. Strangers challenge our assumptions about the world. Again, I grew up quite fearful. I grew up being wary of people I never met, but I grew up like afraid to walk down the street. When you actually talk to people that you don't know, all of that gets challenged. I no longer subscribe to that solely out of the interactions I've had with people. And yeah, I've had not great interactions with strangers. I've had not safe interactions with strangers. And everyone has, to varying degrees. And for whatever, intersection of experience you're at, there's a number of reasons why that might happen on a more frequent scale, not justifiably, but it might become more common due to different intersections. But we're not talking so much about these intersections, though they're important. We're talking a little bit more about the general understanding of the unknown and the unknown person. And I'll tell a story. It's not necessarily my story to tell, but I had a professor who's unfortunately passed. He was a very incredible professor. I only had him for 6 weeks before I dropped out of university. I went back though, and he taught specifically on sociological theory, but his expertise was in the sociology of disability, and he spoke often about his experiences as a visibly disabled person. And one of those instances was walking on the street and hearing people lock their car doors. These stereotypes or these generalizations, these commonsensical that are vastly incorrect and vastly violent. On a deep level, they're violent. If I saw him walking on the street and I did that and I felt afraid for whatever reason, for whatever commonsensical or hegemonic ingrained beliefs that I had, I would miss out on a really fucking dope person. Someone that I was genuinely very, very sad to lose as a mentor. And one of the few reasons I stayed in school for the 6 weeks that I did, because I probably shouldn't have. This is all to say we're really ridding ourselves of like the opportunity to prove ourselves wrong and also to maybe recognize where we're limiting other people. And nobody's perfect. Like I am not, you know, that story that I just told was very near and dear to me as a mother who, I'm not a mother, as my mother was a disabled person. And I held those beliefs. I still often sometimes, like you have to check with yourself on why you feel this way and ensure that like any sense of fear that you have for a person is not unbased. If you see someone that's actively like interested in harming, fear is a valuable experience sometimes, but it's also a misleading experience all the time. If you're experiencing it very regularly, the question is why. There's not a lot to actually be afraid of when it comes to other people on as a whole. And yeah, I think we can talk about like the misjudgment and allocating judgment and the experience of deciding who people are beforehand and what that means. And how many times like have you been told as a person like, oh my God, I was so intimidated by you. Oh my God, like I was afraid to talk to you. Oh my God, like blah, blah, blah. How many times have you felt that about a person too? You'd be astonished about the judgments we make that are unconscious or just frankly unbased, or maybe they are based in these kind of colonial legacies or these racist legacies or these just hegemonic, like the cultural violence that we have on the daily. Maybe it's that, or maybe it's insecurity, maybe it's fear of rejection, maybe it's on this micro level, being afraid of more emotional violence, fear of being treated differently, fear of being pegged as the other, deciding someone else is an other so that you don't become the other, and all these other perversions of what we're really looking for. Because when we feel those things, what are we looking for? Connection. We're looking for connection. We're looking for safety among others. And we've already shit the bed, so to speak, on getting that to happen because we've decided that it's impossible or this situation is incapable of formulating that result, whatever that may be. We can talk about empathy. We can talk about putting yourself in other people's shoes. That's a great tool. Empathy is not something that has ever done me wrong. You have to be careful when you define yourself as an empath. Like, are you an empath or do you have bad boundaries? There's that. But are you empathetic in the sense that you can understand what it might be like to be a person on the outs? Have you ever been rejected? Have you ever been left out? Have you ever been excluded? Have you ever been in a situation where you are the person that is treated differently? You can never claim another person's experience, but you can do your best to make sure that the harms you've experienced have not been experienced by others or will not be experienced at the hands of yourself. And this is all to say, like, when we're really talking about the unfamiliar, we're talking about being alongside one another and becoming comfortable feeling uncomfortable, being comfortable challenging our feelings of discomfort and looking at how the stranger can what the stranger can tell us about ourselves. How can the stranger be a mirror? How, when I meet people, do I see myself in you? I remember when I worked at a pet store when I was in high school, and I fucking hated my job. I fucking hate customer service, guys. Like, and it's funny because I'm talking about how much like you can't judge strangers, but there's a lot you can judge from how someone treats someone who's working as a cashier. Fuck, or any customer service job, anything. You treat strangers like shit, I will judge you hard. But anyways, I fucking hated this job. I was feeling like shit. It was around Christmas time, and I don't know. I struck up a conversation with this one woman, and somehow we got to the point where she said, there's a reason you feel the way you do when you're outside, And it was so casually said and beautifully said, of course. I was like, damn. I see myself in you. You recognize the awe that I recognize, or, the majesty that you recognize, I recognize, or maybe I hope to recognize to that degree, or I feel the sense of connection because you've said this very brief passing statement. I don't know that lady's name. I don't remember what she looks like. That sentence stuck out to me, as does the richness of others. You're not the only person with a full breadth of human experience, right? Everyone is alongside that in their own capacities, in their own ways, and it's always going to be different, which can cause complications, like conflict, but it's not inevitable when you're willing to sit and have a conversation. And the conversation has to be willing on both sides, by the way, just to be very clear. So yeah, let's talk about like how can we approach the unknown in the form of people? How can we approach strangers in a way that is safe? The presumption should always be that people are people. No one has to earn respect, or no one has to earn the right to seem safety, but like evaluate a situation rightfully. If you're alone at night and there's a man looming in the corner, I get why the hairs on your neck might be raised a little bit. But if you're walking on the street and there's an unhoused person asking for change, you do not need to clutch your fucking pearls. Everyone, including myself, needs to better evaluate the way that we encounter the world and the way that we judge people. We might have a more rich experience of one another and a more loving experience of one another. And also just like, so we can change, we can listen. We're not looking for a homogenous group. We're not looking for everyone to be the exact same or to assimilate to this homogenous fucking pool of culture. But we're looking to learn from one another and to better enrich ourselves and to fight for the self-determination of others and to fight for our own self-determination. But yeah, talk to strangers. You'll never hear me say that again. I'm really trying to explain how nuances can be because I recognize that safety is a very valid concern for a plethora of reasons. We are so increasingly afraid of the world, and it doesn't protect us the way we think it does. And so, ask yourselves, I'll continue to ask myself, does this fear have roots somewhere? Where is this fear coming from? Does this fear really keep me safe? Does it prevent me from talking to this person? Does it prevent me from allowing someone to carry about their business as they're carrying out and it affects me zero? Affects others zero? Anyways, love thy neighbor, babies. Golden rule. Treat others how you'd like to be treated. Be nice to service workers. Bye.